What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like we may have had some more games leak out for the Switch 2, and this is particularly interesting because there are expectations for a Nintendo Direct to air next week, but we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Valve as they are being sued, which isn't too new for them, but it does bring up the question around the competitiveness, I guess, on PC, and if Valve is technically at fault for that. And we'll also be talking about the PS2, as there is a new tool that's broken onto the scene that's created a lot of hype because it could actually bring PlayStation 2 games to your PC natively. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're here every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, going over the world of gaming and trying to keep you updated on the news. So even if you don't see a video pop up in your feed, just know there's probably a video here for you in the morning. And we're going to start today with Code Vein 2. That is out this week, and admittedly, the first one was, for me, is okay. So the second one kind of flew under the radar for me personally, but still, I'm sure there are many people who are looking forward to it. It's coming out in a couple of days, but reviews did land yesterday, and we can see it's currently sitting at a 72 on the PlayStation 5. That's where the majority of the reviews were. And we can see 38 positive, 24 mixed, and 1 negative. Now, from what I can tell going through this, it does appear that if you were a big fan of the first Code Vein, you'll probably like Code Vein 2. Go figure. But one of the big things that was pointed out that it's going to be tough to ignore is the overall performance of the game. As in on PC, it struggles, it seems like, when it comes to frame rate, and then certainly on consoles with, again, the PlayStation 5 being the most tested, I guess, here with the reviews, and that is unfortunate. There's also some parts of just repetitiveness that was brought up in the game, and then the story being somewhat lackluster, although I saw that being a big criticism even for the first one, where as you went through it, you started to kind of somewhat bored of the story, and you were just skipping a lot of the cutscenes. But still, again, if you like the first Code Vein, this is probably something to look into. Just maybe go through some of the reviews and make sure it's something you want to buy outright for the full $70 price. Also, it looks like Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is selling out at retail for the Switch 2. Also on the eShop, it's been #1 for the past couple of days since it came out. And then on Xbox, it's found its way into the top 10. So to me, looking at this, it does appear that Square Enix is like, maybe multi-platform is the move, and I feel like that's what we're going to see for the third game, and one of the reasons I think they're racing to get these games out there with Remake and then Rebirth apparently might land later this year as they then work towards that big finale for the current trilogy that they have with the Final Fantasy VII Remake series. Now, for Intergrade, if you're trying to pick that up on the Switch 2, it does seem that this initial run will be the only ones that have those Magic the Gathering booster packs in them, and that future reprints won't. So that could also be something that's spurring on interest in this physical release, of course being a game key card, but fairly priced than having some extras like those Magic the Gathering cards. So if you really want to have those at least come with the game, you might want to try to look around now to see if you can find any of this initial run. Oh, and the very weird situation with Highguard continues to roll along. Hasn't been great for it since it came out now a couple of days ago, as the player count has continued to just fall. I mean, it was 100,000 or so players when it started at, and as recently as I looked just a few hours ago, it was down to 13,000 or so. So it's been losing a lot of its player base very, very quickly. But even from there, it seems that the creators have removed at least mentions of some of their previous games they've worked on. Like, you can see Kotaku pointed this out, where originally it said from the creators of Apex Legends and Titanfall, with the new entry just saying that Highguard is a PvP raid shooter where players will ride, fight, and raid as wardens, arcane gunslingers sent to fight for control of a mythical continent. Yeah, I guess they either couldn't use Apex Legends or Titanfall in their advertising. Maybe EA wasn't very happy about that, or they're kind of seeing what's happening with the game. They're like, we don't want to necessarily tie it to some of our past games that people still look at very fondly. So I lean more towards maybe EA giving them a call and saying, hey, we don't have any affiliation with this game, so remove our games from your advertising. But yeah, the Highguard stuff, it's not going great for them right now. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a potential leak that's gotten out there. And it's interesting because, again, there are expectations that there will be a Direct next week. And we have seen Nintendo touch on NSO releases, or even at times shadow drops. So it actually wouldn't shock me if what we're about to see, which is an advertisement from Walmart, may have gone live a little too early, as in maybe a week early, but you can see the advertisement here, and you look across, you go, okay, yeah, there's Nintendo Switch Online with all the different platforms that they have, Nintendo 64, Game Boy, etc., and the expansion pack, and a bunch of box shots of the different games, except you start looking and go, wait a minute, Pikmin 2 is in there, but Pikmin 2 is not on the GameCube NSO at this time, all right? And then you look over and you see Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and you go, well, that's not on there either. Everything else seemed to check out, but those two in particular stuck out to people, and they said, did this accidentally go live? Did someone at Walmart mess up with the photoshopping? Although that is very, very intentional to find these box art shots and put them between other games. It wasn't like, oh, it's just maybe off to the side, slightly out of the picture. They're pretty legible. It's like Pikmin 2 is just about dead center of this advertisement, and it was live on their website. So you look at that and go, okay, well, what Pikmin 2 is kind of the weird one. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes is not surprised, although I would have liked to have seen a remaster of some kind. I guess it could still happen. This isn't, of course, confirmed yet, but this is, this is as close to, I think, as it gets to Nintendo just about announcing it, which could happen again next week. However, looking at this advertisement, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, it seems that's the easiest path forward, I guess, for Nintendo to just drop it into NSO, but I would have liked to have seen a treatment that we had with Metroid Prime Remastered. The similar thing happened to 2 and then 3. And then Pikmin 2 is weird because we already have Pikmin 2 on the Switch, and they had to remove a lot of the product placement that was in the game, so I don't know how this works, since it'd be emulated. They would still have to go in and do quite a bit of work, and then, like, why would they when they already have the game there for sale? But I mean, they're going to do something similar technically with Mario Sunshine, as that's a game that still needs to go into NSO, and you already have that through way of what the Mario 3D collection. Oh, they did stop selling that, so who knows? It's Nintendo, right? So for me, looking at this, they do have Mario Sunshine, and they have the 2 Pokemon games that still are scheduled to go into the service, but they can just randomly announce something like Wario World. Hey, that's going to the service like now. They could definitely do that with either of these 2 games or both of them. Or maybe they do have to start introducing the next wave of games. We'll see if they want to go that route or just surprise people going forward whenever they feel like dropping a GameCube game in. As for those Pokemon games, I kind of feel like they're going to be dropped into the service. Maybe on Pokemon Day, they'll do that. I figure some big Pokemon Presents, where they'll tell us about Gen 10 Pokemon that should be coming out later this year around the holiday time. And then maybe they'll tell us, hey, Pokemon XD, that's available now, and then Pokemon Coliseum, that'll be coming up the next month, and that's where they'll focus on those releases for NSO. But Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, Pikmin 2, seems like those should be coming up here again, just based on maybe some early advertising that got out there. Next up, I did want to stick with NSO, as Nintendo went over what we can expect for the Virtual Boy, and that's coming up next month, February 17th. All this will go live, and I figure anyone who did order the equipment that you need, apparently, to play this, will have it show up at their house so you can, use the service. That is the thing that is very strange about it, is you need either the cheaper cardboard box alternative where you hold it up to your face, or the entire replica of the Virtual Boy to set your Switch 2 into, or Switch into. So it's still weird that they don't go, hey, you can just play them without the stereoscopic effect. But again, it's Nintendo. Still, they had some pretty cool stuff to show off here in a full trailer that was like an overview of it. And they give us a list of the games we can expect at launch with Teleroboxer. We have Galactic Pinball, Red Alarm, Golf, Virtual Boy, Wario Land, 3D Tetris, and the Mansion of Innsmouth, all right? But then coming in 2026, we have Mario Clash, Mario's Tennis, Jack Bros, Space Invaders Virtual Collection, Virtual Bowling, Vertical Force, and V-Tetris. So a nice little lineup there. Remember, there aren't a ton of Virtual Boy games for Nintendo to pull from. I think globally, like overall, there's just over 20 games. So they're already tapping deep into the well on just these releases throughout 2026. So why not maybe go to some unreleased games? And this caught everyone off guard. I mean, I did not see this one coming. They have 2 unreleased games we can expect for the service. That being Zero Racers, we're gonna come back to in a second, and then D-Hopper. I'm not that familiar with D-Hopper, but as soon as I saw Zero Racers, I said, hold on, that was a game that was going to be in the F-Zero universe. And they apparently weren't going to use the F-Zero name, but we have had enough interviews since it was canceled, and really it was just canceled because the Virtual Boy bombed so badly. It was done. The game, I think, was even ESRB rated at that time. So it was lined up for a release. It's just Nintendo never did it because there was no one to sell the game to, and they decided to just move on from the Virtual Boy at that point. So what a cool idea for Nintendo to do here with NSO and this Virtual Boy setup, get a game that would technically be new to the service. It was unreleased. It wasn't even leaked out online and people were playing it through emulators. It just wasn't out there. So this is pretty cool to have and you know what, you look at it, very rudimentary graphics. That's just how it is with the Virtual Boy, but it's a brand new experience. And for F-Zero fans, they're like, wait a minute, this was that lost F-Zero game that never was. And now you'll be able to play it at some point in 2026. Another aspect they mentioned that's not going to be here at launch, strangely, we have to wait till later on this year, is the ability to change the color palette. So instead of using the very comfortable looking red burning into your eyes, you'll be able to change to a green. They showed a yellow, there's white. So I mean, that's something. It's just odd that it's not till later this year in some sort of update, I'm sure, but not at launch. Still, though, it should be a lot of fun to check out. I mean, the fact that they have unreleased games going in, a pretty healthy lineup of a library that didn't necessarily have a lot to pull from in the first place. It kind of feels like we might get to a point where every Virtual Boy game and then some is represented here, and well, that'll happen pretty quick if they just even release a couple every year. Again, not a lot to necessarily go on for that, but it's a very unique experience, and I think it'll be interesting to see when I do get the Virtual Boy in. I got the whole replica thing coming in. We'll open it up, take a look, the whole thing, and see what we have there with the Virtual Boy in 2026, just on the Switch 2. Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation 2 and the potential for those games to run natively on PC, not through emulation. And this could get very, very interesting because we have seen these decompilation projects that we'll cover from time to time end up resulting in entire ports to PC where you can do all kinds of stuff, whether it's through mods for new content or just graphical updates. Like we just talked about Banjo, how that got the whole recompilation for PC, and there's all kinds of stuff, including ultra-wide support, Star Fox, Mario 64, to name a few. Well, moving up to the PlayStation 2, there are many games I'm sure that people would like to see moved over to PC and get the same kind of glow up. Well, take a look. This is over on, we can see GitHub, and this is the PS2 recomp. All right, this is the PlayStation 2 static recompiler, and you can see it's not ready. This is still early on in development. They're working on it and kind of just letting people know if they want to come in and help with this project, they can. But the PS2 Recomp is a tool designed to statically recompile PlayStation 2 ELF binaries into C++ code that can be compiled for any modern platform. This enables running PS2 games natively on PC and other platforms without traditional emulation. So they mentioned PC and other platforms. I guess you could take some of these PS2 games and move them to other consoles, even if of course, people want to put the work in beyond just this recompiler, right? So that's the other thing. I think when this was making the rounds, there was the belief that this was going to be just a magic button. You press the button on this recompiler and boom, it's done. Everything's moved over. You can boot it up on your PC. It'll be 4K, 120 frames, ultra-wide support. Technically, no, but the point of this tool is to kind of get the ball rolling on that because it will work to complete that first step of just a lot of work and effort to move the game over, as they mentioned, into C++, and then you can pick it up and say, okay, I do want to add these features. I do want to port this game in the first place. But the thing with that is the PS2, there were many systems that sold. There's a massive audience for this console because there are many people who have nostalgia for it. So with that, and then the very, very deep library of titles, I think there's an incredible amount of potential here if this tool does end up panning out. And that's the thing, still very early on, there's a lot of work to be done here. But if so, how we're seeing these N64 decompilations then being compiled and stuff for other platforms. I mean, we just talked about Mario 64 on the Dreamcast being like crazy to see, but stuff like that could potentially move over then to the PS2. I would just be more excited to see some of these games get the treatment of, we're gonna move it up to PC, we're gonna max it out, we're gonna have ultra-wide support, do all kinds of stuff to a game that was fairly limited now looking back on it to the PS2 with I mean, we're plugging the thing in with the yellow, red, white standard definition. Yes, you had your Gran Turismos like 4, the 1080i, but those were few and far between. Most of them are usually 4.3 or maybe faux widescreen and some other effects. This would be awesome to see it moved over to PC, and even though I think it'll be mostly a handful of games that get a lot of the attention, we could get some awesome things out of it. So here's hoping this tool does end up working out. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Valve and the Steam platform as they are being sued once again. Now, they've been sued a couple of times. When you get to that level and that size, you're going to be the target of many, many lawsuits, especially class action lawsuits. Many times where a lawyer or a firm thinks that they can pose a case and kind of take advantage of a situation, all right? I mean, if you ever get part of a class action lawsuit and you're watching go on for years on end, and then the result ends up being a check in the mail that's barely worth the postage, it might be $1 or $2, you know what I'm talking about. But in this case, it does seem that Valve is facing a lawsuit around kind of the practices they employ on their Steam platform. All right, so let's take a look. This is over on BBC, where they say Valve Corporation will face a £656 million, or that's just over $900 million lawsuit in the UK over alleged unfair practices on its global online store, Steam, following a tribunal ruling that the case could continue. The legal action was brought by digital rights campaigner Vicky Shotbolt in 2024 on behalf of up to 14 million Steam users across the UK who could be in line for compensation if she wins. The lawsuit filed at the Competition Appeal Tribunal in London alleges Valve forces game publishers to sign up to conditions which prevents them from selling their titles earlier or for less on rival platforms. It claims that as Valve requires users to buy all additional content through Steam, if they've bought the initial game through the platform, it is essentially locking in users to continue making purchases there. This, Ms. Shotbolt argues, has enabled Steam to charge an excessive commission of up to 30%, making UK consumers pay too much for purchasing PC games and add-on content. I will point out, the firm here that is pushing this case is also the same firm that sued PlayStation for the same thing. I think that's still ongoing, actually. And it comes down to that 30% cut, the idea of locking people to the store, add-on content, etc. I mean, the list goes on. So this isn't their first rodeo, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But the thing with Valve, and this does differentiate them from PlayStation, Valve operates on an open platform with PC and Windows, and I mean, all these other storefronts are able to compete in, what looks like a free market on PC. You're able to go download any launcher you want and then buy different games. In fact, if you look at Epic Games, technically they do work to keep games on their platform away from Steam, and Steam just kind of hangs out and is like, well, we have the best platform. We don't have to do that. So buy your games where you want. And I mean, let's face it, like 90% of the time, people are just buying off of Steam. Now, they do mention what I assume has to be agreement or terms of service for these different developers, publishers, where they have to just stay on Steam and they can't sell a game earlier or for less elsewhere. And I was looking around trying to figure out what they're referencing, and the only thing I can assume is it's either one, terms or an agreement that's not public, maybe ones that are like NDA or specific to these developers, or two, they're talking about the Steam key. They have wording or verbiage around Steam keys, and if they can be sold cheaper off of Steam. And they mention the reason they do that is to protect people on Steam who are buying games and not necessarily be undercut in the secondhand market by Steam resellers who are just generating a bunch of keys and then throwing them around. I'm also curious if the 14 million customers that they're referring to are ones that would then have to opt out. That's how it worked with PlayStation. If you bought any games on the PlayStation Store, like in this wide range of 6 years or something, you were automatically opted in and you'd have to go on the website and opt out. So if that's the case and they're naming 14 million Valve or Steam users for Valve, are they the same thing where you'd have to go in and opt out if you didn't want to be part of this? A lot of questions there. And I mean, they're at least going to hear I guess the argument, and then there's at least going to court, and we'll see what happens from there. But again, the PlayStation one is still ongoing after a few years, so something tells me that'll probably be the case here. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. This is Game of the Year Madness Day 31, the finale, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, absolutely taking down Hollow Knight Silksong without too much issue, actually. In fact, Expedition 33 ran through everything in front of it. It did take down Donkey Kong Bonanza without too much issue, and then Silksong. Same thing. And look, Expedition 33, a lot of people assumed that this was going to happen, and it did. I mean, this game has won the most Game of the Year awards ever in a year. It passed Elden Ring for that, so not too shocking here. And if anything else, to me, this just solidifies, I mean, come on, it's Game of the Year madness. That's the one people are looking towards, right? This was fully audience voted, and it still managed to take the top spot and win the whole thing. So yeah, I guess everyone who was praising the game and saying it's one of the best ever, I guess they were onto something. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Brooks, who says, the game is not releasing in autumn, it's releasing in spring in the US, so the game is not 6 months out, it's releasing sometime in the next 1 to 3 months. Yeah, thanks for that. That was for Tamagotchi Life, and what's weird for me, and I saw some people mention this in the comments, and I didn't know if this was like a thing that other people are experiencing. When I go to Nintendo's website and I search for a game, it defaults me to the Australian version or the page for Tamagotchi Life, and I tried it on a couple of different PCs that aren't even logged in or anything. Same deal. So I'm not really sure what that is, but because I guess in Australia, autumn and spring for the US, autumn for Australia, just got me mixed up there. So you're right. Tamagotchi Life seems to be coming out here in the next few months, we'll say, like 3-4 months at most. So that's good news. And I mean, look, we're going to find out the release date probably tomorrow, I assume, in the Direct. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear more about some of the old days of gaming, even up to what's going on with Xbox. I had a sit down with Mr. Matty Plays for about an hour in a podcast. It was a lot of fun, and I'll leave them right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.